Hello guys, welcome back to part 2 of the e-Spurs transfer special, where we discuss the individual players coming and going this summer window. And where better to start than Kyle Walker. Lyall, we're going to come to you naturally on this. There's been a lot of rumours about Kyle Walker. 8 years worth of service to Tottenham, but what seems to be the situation with Kyle Walker as you understand it at present?
At the moment, what I reported last week still stands really, which is that there's expected to be some contact from Man City to Spurs at any time imminently, really. That they're quite confident of signing him, but there's definitely some distance between the valuations of the players from the two clubs. I think City would like to pay as little over 40 million as they possibly can. I think Spurs value him at least at 50, if not more than that. As far as the player is concerned, I think he's quite relaxed about it. He's not pushing to move. I always get told that Kyle Walker is a Tottenham fan. He's a fan of the club, fan of the team. He's not somebody who's desperate to move, but I think he's in a situation where he's got two clubs that both want him, but probably it might come down to which club wants him more or which club can guarantee him more football. I know he wasn't happy missing certain games towards the end of the year. I don't think his relationship with Pochettino is bad or anything like that, but naturally a player of his stature and his position to have missed those big games because of rotation, I think he was a bit miffed about that. But that's that's natural of all players, when they miss big games. But you never know if City come along and say they can guarantee he's going to be their first choice right back for the next few years. And he's 27 now, and he's been at Spurs for quite a while, and Spurs have obviously got an opportunity there to get a big deal on him. I think it's an open-ended one. It could go either way. He could end up staying at Spurs, and all parties could be happy with that, and he could end up going to Man City, and all parties still be happy with that. That's what I would call an open-ended one. I know Spurs are looking at what they can do if he does go, and that's like when I said earlier they were looking at two positions at the moment. The right back one in case Kyle does go, and the number 10. I know there's two. Yeah. Sorry, yeah, Barkley. Yeah, I know there's two at right back they're looking at. One of them's Ricardo Pereira, who I did a report about last week. And there's another one that they're looking at, but I have not got confirmation on that name yet, so I wouldn't want to hang my hat on it and give out the wrong one. Okay. I know it is going to be one of either. They've scouted quite a few players. There's a lot of names I could go through. The young lad Andrea Conti at Atalanta, scouted on him. Mitchell Weiser, Hertha Berlin. He's another one. David Zappacosta, Torino. Benjamin Hendricks, I think I mentioned him in my report last week. Another one's been scouted, but he just signed a new long-term contract, I think right through until 2021 or 2022, I think, at Bayer Leverkusen. So that would be a difficult one. I think him having just signed a new contract, I think he's indicated he wants to stay at Leverkusen for another few years yet, and he's still very young. Yeah. Jeremy Toljan, who's a right back at Hoffenheim. He's still very young, very raw. I think he might be just a bit too raw, I think, for Tottenham at the moment. He's been scouted as well. There's a right back at Fiorentina, Christian Teo, who's been scouted. But listen, Tottenham scout so many players. Go through endless lists of players that have been watched, and scouting stories are interesting. I think during the season, I think during a season it's interesting to know who players are scouting. But once you get a big list of all the players that clubs have looked at over the course of the season, the list is so long. It doesn't really give any indications as to what the club are doing. Yeah. It doesn't give any indications as to what the club is looking to do or whether they're making any solid plans. But what I've been told is that there's two top targets for potential right back at the moment. One of them is Ricardo Pereira, and the other one is one out of those that I mentioned, but I haven't been able to hang my hat on them yet, but I'm trying to. So,
well, again, we appreciate the honesty, Lyall. Jason, what's your take on that in terms of what Lyall's saying there about Walker? It does seem that there will be some potential movement. The fact that he's not pushing for a move away, that's good to hear, isn't it?
Yeah, that's important that he's not agitating, and we don't get that disruption of a player. Hopefully we don't get the stories that I can't play in August because I don't want to avoid injury or anything like that we had Well, we had it with Modric, and didn't we have it with Berbatov? Let's just hope it resolves. But even then, when I think Lyall's story last week about Walker, with Manchester City are set to make their bid, I was still quite relaxed with that, because I keep thinking in my mind it's one thing to convince Walker and his agent and get personal terms agreed, but it's an entirely different thing to have to get Daniel Levy to agree to it. And Daniel Levy knows Manchester City are desperate for that player. So he's not just going to take the first cheque that comes along, is he? That's for sure. So I think that one is another one that could roll on a long, long way down the line, and be interesting to see if Manchester City do go for Dani Alves or someone like that and think, it might be easier to deal with that and worry about Walker another year.
I think Alves would be an as well as, not
right.
Instead of.
Okay.
Given his age and given where he's at, Alves is somebody who's as an assured as deputy as you can possibly hope for, isn't he? Really,
yeah.
If hypothetically Kyle Walker is your first choice right back and he gets injured, or you want to rotate and you want to bring somebody in who's going to be assured to give you great experience and is still a very good player, then Alves is obviously the one, and he presents a cheap deal. He's again, because of his age, he's only got a year left on the deal he signed at Juventus, so it's not going to cost a great deal. You can afford to give him his wages if you're a Man City, can't you? So I think with the Kyle Walker one, I think City are very clear that they want to do business quickly, and they're obviously in a financial position where they can do business quickly. I were expecting contact was from them to Spurs over Walker anytime soon, because they want to do it quickly if they can. So I think actually with the Walker thing, it'll be something that's decided fairly soon. I'm not sure. I'm not aware of any other clubs that are that serious about him at the moment.
Right. But what I want to ask you, just very briefly on Walker, if we stick with him for a second, Lyall, is it anything to do with his fitness, concentration? We've heard those rumours being spouted about that Pochettino doesn't feel confident enough that he can play 3 games within a week, 2 games within a week, and that Trippier, in terms of concentration, maybe just has it a bit more there than Walker. Can you dismiss that, or do you think that also is playing maybe a small factor in his mind?
No, I think Pochettino probably still feels, and what I've been told is that I think the club in general still feel that Walker is slightly better than Trippier.
Right.
But I don't think there's that much in it now.
No.
And the thing is, you got to think about how long, and even Ben Davies as well. I always thought it would be interesting if Danny Rose hadn't have been injured, and he'd have been available as well, because I think you would have seen a similar situation where both the fullbacks would have been rotated, and you might have seen Rose missing out on some big games as well as Walker, through rotation, because Davies and Trippier, it's their second seasons at the club. They've both done really well. They've both been firing on all cylinders in training and improving, and they both deserve to play. So I think it's less about Walker's shortcomings and more about Trippier's ability and somebody that they've bought and promised will get games and get a run in the team and has deserved to get a run in the team. And you just have to look at the way Trippier played at the end of the year. I mean, Kyle Walker just wasn't missed, was he?
No, he wasn't.
Some of the scouting you're talking about of right backs, they may well have been scouting some of those, particularly earlier last year, with a view that Trippier might be the one that wanted to move on 2 years down the line, rather than looking for a right back to think, blimey, we need to actually now go and replace Kyle Walker, whereas Trippier was probably the one they thought might want to go first.
Well, maybe so. I think. Listen. It's the way Tottenham operate now. The difference between the way they operate now and they used to in the past is that they will do due diligence on players anyway. So they'll watch they'll watch right backs even when they haven't got it in their mind to be changing the right back, because what they will want is, when it comes to the point where they, like now, where they do have to change the right back, they've already done that due diligence on a number of players. They've already got the reports, they've already watched him, they can already make a decision rather than trying to play catch up. It's really about kind of covering your arse and making sure you don't get get caught out and get into a situation where you've got to accept a player you don't know much about. It's all about minimising the risk when you sign a player and getting to know as much about them as possible on the pitch, and now getting to know as much as you can about them off the pitch as well, and how they behave. I mean, I saw that the PSG right back Serge Aurier was mentioned with Spurs in a few reports recently, and on the pitch certainly he's a good player and he fits the kind of profile, but there's been lots of reports in France about him having a bit of an attitude problem and having some difficulties there. So that'd be one of the reasons why Spurs probably wouldn't go for somebody like that.
Wasn't he the boy that couldn't get a visa when they played Arsenal or something last year?
Yes, I think so. I think that's right. Yeah. I'll have to
Was because he had a criminal record or something, and he couldn't get a visa to play or something like that. I'm sure it was Serge Aurier.
And just on Walker, very quickly, Lyall, I've been asked a question here. I'm just going through the list. We've got so many questions. Being asked, if you had to put your hat on it, would he be a Tottenham player come August? And that is from Gavin Spurs. What do you think, Lyall? If you were a betting man, of course, not saying you are, what would you think?
I know better than to hang my hat. It goes back to what I was saying before about it being open-ended. There's just so many variables and things that can change. To every transfer story, there's three sides to it. There's two clubs and one player, and all three sides have got to agree to it, and any one of those three sides can pull out at any point. So, even when you've got all your ducks in a row, that's usually when you can confidently report something. But I'm not going to go making predictions on that one. Like I said, at the moment there is a big difference in the valuations of the player, which usually indicates that there'll be some difficulty to get an agreement. So, that tends to sway towards me saying, well, maybe there won't be an agreement over him. But City have got the money, and if they think, well, Kyle Walker's the one that we want, and there's no others out there, then they might have to pay for him.
He'd be the one player that you take a good fee for, providing you feel like you can genuinely replace him with a player that, because Kieran Trippier, we've seen how he's improved this year and come on. But, we do know he'd like to rotate the fullbacks, and you've got to think what would happen if Kieran Trippier picked up a 6-8 week absence. You can't be relying on Champions League football and a Premier League title chase on Kyle Walker-Peters that's not kicked a ball in professional football yet. No. So I think, even if Walker does go, it's not, I hear people saying Trippier can cover him. Yes, he can, for maybe 25 of the 50 games we'll play, but you've still got to allow for that rest of the team. And let's also forget, as good as Trippier's delivery is, you still have that real pace and power that Walker gives you, which, let's be fair, we're not blessed with great pace through the team. So, it would still be a big blow to lose him for me.
Let's move on to some other players. Lyall, we'll give yes and no's on these because the time is pressing against us. In terms of the outs, Moussa Sissoko, can you tell us, before we ask you about his future, there's been a lot banded around about the actual price we paid for him. Was it a full 30 million we've paid for him up front, Lyall? Any indications on that firstly?
No, it's 5 instalments of £6 million.
Right, and would that be if the player was to complete his full duration at Spurs, or is that
just over the course of 5 years?
So it will be paid regardless whether the player remains at Spurs or not, as far as you understand.
Yes, they've paid as far as I'm aware, they've paid 6 million so far, and they'll pay the next 6 million on the same date as when the transfer went through. So probably on deadline day this time, they'll pay another 6 million. So that'll be 12. But obviously, if they sell him, they've still got to make those payments. So in terms of selling him, Daniel on the club will want to recoup as much of that 30 as it comes to as they possibly can. So ultimately, it's a £30 million transfer because that's the total. You'll see it reported as that because that's the total deal.
Okay.
But so far they've only paid
6.
Paid the 6. Yeah, and I think that's why it was an attractive deal. Obviously, again, I can't for Daniel Levy, but I think from what I would hazard a guess is that was the attractiveness of the deal.
I'm not sure if he's looking that attractive now, Lyall, 6 months down the line in terms of his performances. Is he going to be a Tottenham player?
No, I don't think so. Well,
okay.
He might be if they don't get the fee they want from him. They're just going to sell him on the deep and take a massive loss. I mean, you might in that situation, if they weren't to get any attractive bidders for the fee, he could go out on a loan and they'll try and recoup the 6 million they'll pay for this year on loan and hope that he does well somewhere and is a more attractive prospect to other clubs next summer, because obviously he's not at the moment. But for me, he's playing the wrong position. He's never a right winger. He was never a right winger all day long. No. When he joined Newcastle, he was a centre midfield player. He started playing there. I remember watching his first few games for Newcastle when he went and thought, what a player this guy looks. In terms of a central midfield player, he was great then. I think he was slightly less stocky then. He was a little bit more lean and a bit quicker. He looked a bit quicker anyway. He looked a bit more athletic and looked a bit more in control of what he was doing, whereas now he just looks...
He does look devoid of confidence. And Jace, coming to you, I mean, do I get the feeling you feel a bit sorry for him, Jace, because he hasn't really had a regular run of games in the side, and I think, would you like to see him stay maybe and get given him more of a chance?
I wouldn't go so far as to say I feel sorry for him. I just, I don't understand why supporters want to boo a player and completely slate a bloke. I've tried to be objective and think, right, while he does get a chance to play for us, try and get behind the bloke, because at the end of the day, I want to see him do well at Tottenham, because if he's doing well, the team will do well. But I've always, the only other thing I've always said about him is that you cannot have that many caps for France in a let's be fair, a really good international side when there's lots of competition for midfield places around him. You can't have 50 odd caps and be a poor player. You can't. And it's just a shame that we've not seen whatever form he's shown for us, he's just never shown the same level of form that he shows for France.
Well, he did brilliantly for France last year, didn't he? In the tournament they hosted, and he played in midfield. He plays a centre midfield player. They played 4-3-3. They played 3 centre midfield players. They played Pogba as the deepest of the 3 central midfield players, and then the one on the left they played Sissoko, and the one on the right, I think through the middle, was Payet, wasn't it, or somebody like that? But he played in the middle of midfield, and I think he's much more suited to that position. He's much more of a combative sort of midfield player, and I don't think he was ever a right winger personally. I mean, I know that's where he played for Newcastle. I just don't think he hasn't got the creative nous, to beat players and be really dangerous in that position. So he's played there for Spurs this year, and he's not looked great, and that's what people go off on their opinion, don't they? They're obviously going to draw their opinion, what they see in front of them, and what they've seen in front of them hasn't been very good.
I mean, on that, just in the same way really quickly, and I'm not comparing him and say he's anywhere near the level of Pogba, but you look at the reaction of Pogba when he plays for Manchester United, he's usually quite negative. He looks at Pogba play for England, and he totally bossed that game, didn't he? And he looked every inch the world-class superstar that Pogba is. And so there again, you see, Pogba's gone off to play for France, played slightly differently there, looked an entirely different player the other night.
But Lyall, just to round it up onto Sissoko, if the price is right,
absolutely, he's somebody that they'll openly take offers for, and as close to that 30 as possible. Again, I wouldn't want to go to say I would see him in his Spurs shirt. Again, down to whether club can pay that,
Yeah, of course. And next player, Lyall, that has been linked with a move away, I hope you can maybe shed us some light on, is Eric Dyer. The reported fee that apparently has been banded around the papers is 50 million. Spurs are looking to take no less. What's your understanding of Eric Dyer? Anything you can fill us in on? Is he a player that Tottenham would consider a bid? I hope you're going to say no. What do you think?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
Okay.
He's like Toby, really. He's
so pivotal to that I say back line, and David McClaw also agrees. He hopes, hopefully not, and you think that as well, Lyall. Hopefully no bids.
Yeah, I would be shocked.
And other players, Vincent Janssen, disappointing first season. Lyall spent a lot of money on him, young player again. Again, I think the problem we've got here, Lyall, and again it's a question that we're being asked on, that we need to press you on, is are Spurs going to find it hard to try and bring in better players than what we've got already, in terms of we've got Harry Kane up front there? How hard is it to try and bring another striker when they know they're not going to displace Kane? It's a difficult quandrum, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the hardest thing. I think that's the hardest role at Tottenham, that they've got to try and convince a player is worth being there for. And I think it's been noticeable on Janssen, really, because there's so many aspects to it. Because if you're Vincent Janssen at Tottenham and Harry Kane's fit, he's going to play. There's going to be no alterations there, is there? Unless, some seismic drop in form happens, which just isn't going to happen to Harry. So any deputy centre forward there has to carry that burden with them. Where they know it doesn't matter how they're going to play when Harry Kane's not fit or he's injured or whatever. Harry Kane's still going to come back into the team, and not only that, but you've also got to live up to the presence of Kane. The him being such a fan's favourite, and really, the kind of the spearhead of the whole team, and a future captain, and all that kind of thing. So it's really difficult for Tottenham to convince another player to come in and do that. So that there's a difficult situation really in terms of Janssen because of that. Who else comes in? I mean, they would have to be pretty sure that someone else was going to come in and be better than Vincent, and also convince him. So
do you anticipate Lyall he'll be if come August?
Well, I know Pochettino is I wouldn't go as far as to say he's sitting on the fence about Janssen, but I know he isn't. He's not unconvinced of Janssen. I know he likes him.
Okay. He's got good attitude, hasn't he?
And listen, he's a good player. In terms of his finishing, his class.
Yeah, and he's banging the goals in for the Netherlands at the moment.
Exactly. I think he's just got to get over that hurdle, really. That in the Premier League, it's a tough thing to adjust to. He's still really young. What is he? 21, 22.
Yeah.
So much more to come from him. And again, if you're Spurs, you've invested a whole year in him. He's learned a lot in that year. He's learned a lot about what Pochettino wants from him. What a second season. Like you said earlier, him and Son's first season wasn't great. It was inconsistent. Well, his second season's been fantastic, and there's no reason why that couldn't happen for Vincent Janssen. Why his second season? Now he's settled for a year. Now he knows the score. He knows what the situation is and how to crack on with it. There's no reason why he couldn't develop into a really useful player. So again, I think that's something that will develop as the summer goes on.
Yeah.
Again, that can depend on how much another club might want him. If someone was to come in and make Tottenham a very good offer on Vincent, then they might listen to it. But equally, if they haven't got another option out there, then that's not really a viable thing for the club to do. If they haven't got someone else they know can come in and do equally as important job.
Yeah, I think as well with Sissoko, and it also Vimmer as well, that to get competitive football to push for a World Cup place. We saw it with Deschamps more or less hinting to Sissoko. Apparently, you need to be playing games, and it's interesting to hear about Mbappe hoping to stay with Monaco because he wants to play games to secure that place rather than going anywhere else where he won't.
Yeah, very difficult one on that. We'll have to wait and see and watch this space, as Lyall says. Lyall, coming on very quickly, I know time is against us. Eric Lamela, will he be a Tottenham player this upcoming 2017-2018? And what did you make of the fiasco about this injury? And him and Danny Rose also suffering from the same kind of situation where, had an injury, Spurs seemed to want to let the injury kind of brew and see if surgery wasn't required. In the end, both ended up having surgery. What can you tell us on those situations there? And again, just final point, whether you reckon Lamela will be a Tottenham player in August?
I think he will. And I think Lamela's still recovering from this injury. I wouldn't expect anybody to want to try and sign a player who's injured for a start. From what I can gather at the moment, it's not really looking very promising that he's going to be able to start the season still with his recovery and stuff. So, I don't see that him being someone that's going to leave. Certainly not. I mean, he's they've invested a lot of time and a lot of effort in getting him fit. So it's not very often that you see a club do that and then want to get rid of him. And I'm not aware that he wants out either. So
okay.
So I don't see that one changing. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the injuries, I think it was all pretty out there already. Really, what happened with those injuries? I mean, they've got really good medical expertise, and they take the advice of the medical staff. And you also have to listen to the player as well. I mean, sometimes I think with players that can be a bit of a pitfall really with clubs. They obviously listen to the player, and what these days players know their bodies in much more fine medical detail than they ever have done before. So you do need to listen to a player if he says, no, I don't feel this, and no, I don't feel that, and I think I can do this, I think I can do that. But that's why they're assessed on such a irregular basis, really. And I think it's a normal, prudent thing to want to try to overcome an injury without surgery. I mean, surgery is it's not to be overlooked. I mean, going under the knife and having an operation is not a small thing, even if you're a football player. So I think all clubs, including Spurs, will try and avoid that where they can. But no, absolutely nothing sinister there.
Okay, good. And that's how we look forward to both Danny Rose and Eric Lamela being back in Spurs shirts. Lyall, just to finish up, we're going to go through just a list of names, incomings. Just let us know if you think they're on our radar. So Ryan Sessegnon, apparently Liverpool bowed out very early on him in the summer, considering they missed out on the player. Could he be a Tottenham player, Lyall, come, I don't know, August?
Well, I don't know if definitely be a Tottenham player. I know better than to make that prediction. But yes, they want him.
Okay.
They want him. Pochettino is a big fan, but Fulham don't want to sell him at the moment. That's what they keep telling clubs at the moment, including
right.
Spurs. They keep saying they don't want to sell him. The owners have made assurances, because Fulham's another one of the clubs on my radar.
Yeah.
So, well, as I understand it, the hierarchy there have made some pretty solid assurances to Jukanovic that they're not going to sell their top players. They nearly they're obviously in the playoffs last year, and they want to get promoted. They want to get the club back to the Premier League. As far as they're concerned, they've been out of the Premier League far too long. They were hoping to come back up at the first time of asking. It's now been 3 seasons that they've been down there. So I think, they obviously want to keep Sessegnon. They want to keep Tom Cairney as well. So in the moment that's where it stands. I think it was reported that Liverpool pulled out, but I think Liverpool pulled out because they realised that Fulham weren't going to sell, and that's where it's at the moment. There's been no further offers from the clubs. There's been no official talks between the two clubs. There's been obviously again, this is down to the nuances of transfer stories. When people say talks, where you have to try and find out who's doing the talking. I mean, if I say there's what I try and do anyway is if I report there's been talks, and that means that the clubs are talking, but obviously messages get passed across via intermediate, via agents, so clubs can get a good idea of where another club's at in terms of their position through the messages passed across, as long as you can guarantee those messages are going to be as accurate from one side as when they're delivered to the other side. So with Sessegnon, again, it's there's no movement there at the moment.
Okay. Josh King, in your opinion, Lyall, anything on that at all? Josh King?
Good player. They like him.
Okay.
But I think Bournemouth will keep hold of him. To be honest, I think they keep him, and he's one that what I've been told is that they're saying is not for sale at the moment.
Okay. But this could all change, Lyall, as we see over the summer. Things happen. Sometimes things may change. Is that the indication?
You never know. But he's on a long contract. I think it would take a big offer. Josh King, he's one of the best young talents in the Premier League at the moment. And
Demarai Gray, winger, Leicester, can't get into the team there. Could he get into the team at Tottenham, Lyall?
Difficult one, I think, because I think that things have changed slightly in what Tottenham want to do. I don't think Demarai Gray. I think when they were looking at wingers, Demarai Gray would have probably been on the list with the Zaha thing as well. As far as I understand it at the moment, is that the idea going forward is to obviously keep 3 at the back, play 4 in midfield, and play 2 number 10s.
Right.
So if you're going to play 2 number 10s, I don't think Demarai Gray is really going to fit in the team anywhere, is he? I mean,
no. And you would argue he might not be good enough for this team as well, to be honest.
Well, he's still young, still quite raw. Going into players I actually feel sorry for, not Sissoko, but if I was to feel sorry for anybody, it would be GK and Kudu. I think he suffered a little bit from the tactical change, because I think the idea before the start of last season was to play with wide players and stick with the 4-2-3-1, but they obviously went to 3 at the back and 4 in midfield and 2 number 10s, and there's no space for an out-and-out winger really at Tottenham at the moment, and that's what Gray is. So I'd be very surprised if they went for that.
I'd say Demarai Gray's a type of player that would stunt the development of Edwards.
Okay.
You think, why bring Demarai Gray in and block the pathway for Marcus Edwards? Let's go down the Marcus Edwards route. If you're talking about Demarai Gray, Thomas Lemar would be totally different.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Fair enough. And Lyall, couple of centre-backs linked, Smalling, Mawson. What can you tell us? Anything in those two?
Well, the centre-back situation is going to depend on Kevin Wimmer, isn't it?
Okay.
And he goes, they've got enough options there. I know they're not busting a gut to bring a centre-back in at the moment. When I said they're looking at doing 2 positions at the moment, the 10 maybe the right back, and that they'd probably move on to another 2 further down the line. Centre-back might be the one, I think, if there's some movement there with Kevin Wimmer. So Chris Smalling, I don't know. I don't have an answer for you, because I don't know that Tottenham are interested. I haven't been told that.
Okay.
He has just changed agents, Chris Smalling. So he's changed over to some new agents to Omnisport. So when you change agents, the things are kind of there's a refresh button. So you need to assess the player's future from all angles. You need to assess who's interested. You need to assess whether Manchester United want to keep him. I don't think there's any solid indications yet that Man United don't want him around. But then again, they have just brought a new centre half in. So, but as far as Tottenham interested in Smalling, I don't know.
Right. Final 3, I promise. Sigurdsson, Swansea. Would he look for a bit more? Definitely not. Okay, fine. That rules him out. And finally, the last 2. Riyad Mahrez. Leicester didn't see the best of him last season. Could he be a player under Poch that could flourish, Lyall? Any interest there at all?
Complete no.
Good.
Okay. And finally, last but not least, we love a fantasy signing. Isco. Is it going to happen this summer, Lyall, for Tottenham?
I thought you might mention it.
Sorry, had to slip him in. What do you think? Any chance?
I don't think so.
Don't think
Again,
so.
He's in the same situation as Lamar, isn't it? In the case that he's what a player, an absolute class player.
Yeah.
Of course, a player that if Tottenham had the chance to bring him in they bring him in a heartbeat because he's great, and again he can play in that number 10 role. But at the moment he's been playing for Real Madrid. It looks like Ronaldo is going to leave. There's going to be space for Isco, and there's going to be space for all those kind of more, or what were previously peripheral players at Real Madrid to be more heavily involved. I know that Zidane's a massive fan of Isco, so I'd be very much surprised. He's obviously, with his contract situation still not resolved there, but I would expect him to commit to Real Madrid and stay there, to be honest.
Okay. Brilliant. And finally, last but not least, Lyall, I have to ask you, can Tottenham Hotspur win the league at Wembley next season? What do you think?
There's no reason why not.
What do you reckon? Your prediction, though, could we? Is there a chance?
Well, yeah. Listen, the Tottenham have been on the ascendancy year on year. Came in, and if you're on the ascendancy, well, where's the logical next step for finishing second? It's first. Listen, Tottenham will compete for the title next year, no question about it. They'll be up there competing. Whether they'll win it or not can come down to all sorts of things like refereeing decisions. So I can't make a prediction on that one. But listen, the club is continuing to improve in all areas, and what I will predict at the end of this transfer window is that Tottenham will not be a weaker team.
That's what we want to hear.
They will not be a weaker squad.
Yeah,
I can be pretty sure of that. At least from their point of view, they will think that they'll have a stronger squad, and that's what the intention is. Of course, it is. That's always the intention. Is to come out stronger at the end of it. So there's no reason why they can't compete for the title next year. Yeah, not at all.
That is fantastic to hear. And Jace, just leaving the final words with you there. Great to hear that from Lyall, isn't it? In terms of hopefully we'll end the window stronger than how we've gone into it. That's what you want to hear, isn't it, as a Tottenham fan?
Yeah, that's the aim of every window, but we probably thought we came out of last year's window stronger than when we went into it, and within a few weeks things started, took on a different light. But no, I'm confident that we'll do the business that we want to do, and I don't get too worried when I see other clubs playing supermarket sweep and signing players. I hear lots of things. Manchester City will be a much stronger side next year. Look at them, they've already signed Bernardo Silva, but if Bernardo Silva plays, David Silva doesn't play. If they go and sign another striker, then where does that leave Aguero? So, it's almost replacing. Even Man United will be a better side when they sign Morata, but he'll replace Ibrahimovic, who scored, 30 goals, and they still finished fifth. So, just because they look like strengthening on paper, but it doesn't always work out that way. I think you give me 86 points this year, I'll bite your hand off and I'll take my chance with 86 points. Okay. And, hopefully that will be good enough next year, because I can't see one side winning another 30 games like Chelsea did. So, like I say, if you give me 84 points, 85, something like that, I'll take my chances and say that'll be good enough. And really? If it isn't, it isn't. Yeah.
Really, really interesting summer ahead. Lyall, I cannot thank you enough for joining us tonight. No one will know this, but we've had to re-record the show twice. So, Lyall, thank you so much for all of your help tonight, for getting us through this hour and a half. Really, really appreciate it.
No problem. Delighted and happy to come anytime.
Honestly, been a real pleasure. We most certainly look to get you back on. Guys, thank you all so much for all of your questions. I'm so sorry we haven't got through them all. I hope we've answered the majority of your transfer questions. I know there'll be hundreds more out there of players that we haven't spoken about, but I hope we've cleared up some of them for you. Jason, as always, thank you so much again for your contribution to tonight's show and throughout the season.
No problem, mate. Nice to be up right the way through the night, and I can go and have breakfast now.
And I think poor Lyall's going to be ready for the Good Morning Sports show, I think, on Sky Sports, where we've kept him. I'm so sorry, Lyall, honestly. We'll be back very, very shortly over the summer with more Talking Tottenham. And as always, come on you Spurs!